Hello, good day to you. In this session, we are going to get acquainted with 10 practical WordPress themes and then learn how to work with each of them. This means you should know how to work with these 10 themes for designing a website, and they truly become your toolkit for website design. Let's go and get to know each of these themes one by one and see what functionalities and applications each of them has. The first plugin it works with is the WP Hide Login plugin. The WP Hide Login plugin is for changing the admin login URL. By default, the WordPress login URL, as you know, is wp-admin. With this plugin, I can easily change that URL, making it less accessible to most people, or even hackers, preventing them from easily connecting to it and using it. The next plugin, guys, is Complete WordPress Security, a very important plugin in the BATS field of security for WordPress. So, when we can configure this plugin well and accurately, we can prevent security attacks from entering, meaning we can make our site significantly secure and prevent it from being easily hacked. This is because WordPress has a large user base worldwide, which makes it very attractive to hackers. But usually, when you can configure this plugin well, you really make it difficult for them, and hackers cannot easily access your site. Guys, the next plugin is WP Rocket. The WP Rocket plugin is for optimizing my site. When you design a site as a web designer, you need to optimize the site in every aspect. In terms of speed, in terms of code. WP Rocket does this. But now, there are various ways and different plugins for optimization. Okay? We will get to it later on how we can use which plugin and how to determine which plugin is suitable for our work. WP is one of the solutions for this. And the next plugin we have, which is related to our previous topic, is the Lightspeed Cache plugin. This plugin is also for optimization. So, what's the difference? When I'm using a web server with LS Cache or Lightspeed, I use the Lightspeed Cache plugin. Therefore, if the web server is also Lightspeed, I use Lightspeed Cache or LS Cache. If it's anything else, I use WP Rocket. Guys, it's not mandatory that if my web server is Lightspeed, I must use LS Cache, but based on our site structure and our template, we need to decide which one to use and which one offers better efficiency and performance for us. Guys, the next plugin we use is the Rank Math SEO plugin. The Rank Math SEO plugin is for us to be able to configure technical SEO related items within the website. One of the reasons for using WordPress is its high SEO capability. Right? However, just using WordPress alone does not lead to SEO optimization, and we need to handle some technical aspects with it. And Rank Math is exactly the plugin we need. Later on, you will fully learn how to work with this plugin and what tools it offers us. Guys, the next plugin we have is WooCommerce. You might have heard its name by now. When we want to set up an online store website, we need a store module or a store plugin. The WooCommerce plugin is one of the best store plugins in WordPress, and it has a lot of extensions and add-ons. It allows us to manage the store effectively. In addition to the numerous options that WordPress itself offers, WooCommerce provides us with many features that we can utilize. Guys, the next plugin is the page builder Elementor. You've probably heard its name before. We have several page builders like Elementor, Composer, UX Builder, and others. However, the best and most comprehensive page builder we can work with is Elementor. When choosing a theme, we always say to select themes that are compatible with Elementor. We'll get to that later, so you can design your site with them. Guys, the next plugin is the backup plugin. We need to regularly back up our site, especially since we determine our results from it. That's why it regularly takes backups, but we definitely need to back it up ourselves to ensure that our site doesn't get disrupted, hacked, or lose its data. We use Updraft Plus for this purpose. The thing about Updraft Plus is that it has a series of features that we'll discuss in its dedicated video. One of these features is that I can schedule it to, for example, take an output or backup of my database twice a day. This means I can connect it to a secondary FTP and transfer all my data to another host for backup. Guys, the next plugin is a paid one. If I want to set up a multilingual website, I need a plugin to help me do that with WordPress, to make it understand that I need a second, third, or more languages. There are many plugins for this purpose like WPML and Polylang, but based on our experience, Polylang is better than WPML. Later in the videos, we will explain how to work with Polylang and how to configure it. But just keep in mind that for making a site bilingual, we should use Polylang. The next plugin we will work with is the Duplicator plugin. I use it to make a copy of my site and move it to another place and install it again. This happens when I want to change my hosting. So I use Duplicator to make a copy of my site and install it in a new location. You might say I can do this manually, but Duplicator makes it very easy for us and has features that are very useful. So for moving the site, we use Duplicator. Guys, these are the 10 useful plugins that we should be familiar with from the start, In the second step, we need to learn how to work with these plugins. Today, we are going to learn how to change our admin area address using the WP Hide Login plugin. For this, we need to go to Plugins, Add New, and install the plugin from the WP Hide Login source. When we search for it, it shows up as Login Hider for us. We will install it. Once it is installed, it appears in our plugin section with a setting that tells us it can, by default, change the login URL from WP admin to something else. For example, we can set it to login for everyone, which might be easy, or we can choose something more complex for the admin, like HTML marketing admin, or anything else we prefer to make it harder to find. The next setting is about what happens if someone enters the redirection URL, meaning if they type WP admin, which page should they be redirected to? We can set it to go to the home page or to a 404 page. Now, we save it like this. If I exit this page once, meaning if I leave the dashboard and type WP-admin, where will it take me? It will take me to the 404 page. But if I set it to the team admin, it will do exactly what I defined. With this address, my WordPress will come up at this time and improve my security. In this section, you guys are going to work with the WP Rocket plugin, the plugin we use for optimization. This plugin, guys, is not free, and especially I can't use its premium version. So we will provide you with the download link so you can use it. Now, to install it, I go to Plugins, click on Add New, then Upload Plugin, and start uploading the plugin itself. I proceed to install it. Guys, sometimes we might encounter an error during the installation of plugins. It might say, for example, that your upload size is less than your file size. In that case, what should I do? I feel like this error is given to me, saying that your file is too large and I can't upload it. I need to install it manually at that point, which means I go to the public KML, WP content, plugins, and here I place the plugin I want. Now, if I say I want to remove a plugin like Rocket that I installed, well, here I go. It gives this error that I can't install it because of you, meaning your Rocket size is larger than my upload size. I come here to the plugin section, so where is it? It's in public HTML. Now this folder is here, WP content. Plugins. Here is where my list of plugins exists, and I click upload and upload the file in zip format. Okay, it uploaded for me. When it uploads, guys, I need to extract the zip file, ACE, and bring it into the plugins. Once I complete this step, I go to the plugin section and my plugin will be here and I need to activate it. Guys, once I activate it, it goes to the settings section and WP Rocket appears for me. It has a series of tools and criteria, guys. In general, for measuring the speed of our website, we have two tools: page speed, insights, and JIT metrics itself. Usually, to ensure compatibility with Google, make sure to use page speed insights. However, we optimize both on page speed insights and on GT metrics itself. Now, to optimize this, I enter this address here, so it can analyze it for me to see how my speed is. But right now, I don't have specific data on this site. As we move forward, we'll bring up a complete site and then go back to adjusting this WordPress. But for now, to see how our site's speed is, we need to enter our site's URL, and then GT metrics or page speed insights will provide us with some data to show us the current status of our site. Right now, we only have a single page and a very empty image, not much more. Now it's saying, sir, slow down. It's between 78%. Your structure is 90. There are some concepts that we will work on together later, like LCP or like CLS. We need to work on these together. Now, the status of our site is very good in terms of speed because it doesn't have any data. We are loading our site in 2, 3, 10 seconds. Usually the site speed should be under 5 seconds because if it's more than 5 seconds, the user won't stay on the site. Now let's work with the tools to see what settings Rocket provides us, and then we'll move on to configuring it. The first part, guys, is caching. What is the concept of caching? It's that every browser that has been created and exists says when you open the site. I store some of the scripts myself. For example, some images or some code. Why? Because the next time I want to visit the website, it will open faster and provide a better experience for you. That's why we can also activate this cache on the server side. Meaning we say, okay, I'm activating the cache because my coding was already finished, my website design was already done, so now I activate caching and store some data on the server itself. This way, when the user visits, they can see it at a higher speed, meaning they don't have to quickly fetch every piece of data from the request and return it. Now here we activate the cache. It says, sir, with the cache activated, we can define a separate cache for mobile for you. It asks, should I separate the mobile and non-mobile cache files for you? What happens then? Now the displays might be different. And if the mobile cache is different, it says, I can separate it for you. It says enable cache for logged in users. Guys, if your site is an e-commerce or educational site, don't activate this part because it might interfere with your sales profit. But if it's a corporate site, then it's okay. Whether it's on or off, it doesn't matter. The next topic says, guys, how long should I keep the cache for you? Because my site isn't supposed to never change, it says, for example, tell it to clear my cache every hour. Or if your data changes over a long period, set it to a day, for instance. It says clear it every 30 days. It completely depends on their needs. The next part talks about optimizing our files or minifying and grouping and combining files. We have a series of CSS and JS files that are created by the template itself and WordPress. Now, these files say I can compress them, meaning I can reduce the spaces or anchors between the files so that your site size decreases, your file size decreases, and I can read them more easily. I should mention that you can enable compression so your files get compressed. It says, sir, I can minify some files for you. But it warns that in CSS, you might have a CSS file that could break if I minify it. You can come and exclude it for me, and here, provide its address in WP content, indicating not to minify these files. Usually, we don't encounter issues with CSS when minifying, but this might happen in some cases. There is a minification feature that says remove unused CSS or load CSS asynchronously. This means if I have 10 CSS files, don't load them all at once, which could cause a lot of strain. Load them one by one sequentially so that the load size is reduced. Or regarding unused CSS, we usually don't use this with the team because it often can't accurately determine which CSS is being used and which isn't. Therefore, we opt for asynchronous loading to have better control over our speed. In the next part, guys, it's about JavaScript files. We say compress them. It might happen that when we compress them, some issues arise. After compressing, we say merge them, meaning if I have 10 JS files, compress them, and merge them into one file so that I load just one JS file. This is important because if a site has 10 JS files compared to a site that has just one JS file, loading takes longer, which is why we can say compress and merge them. But guys, for some sites and some templates, when I hit merge, it might disrupt the process of that file and that site, meaning the JS might not load and could damage the site. Yet if I know which file is causing this issue, I can come here and modify it to say, exclude it for me and don't include these files in my JS. Also guys, it says I can remove inline JS for you. Now here it also tells me that the JavaScript loading should be delayed, meaning that my site should load first and then the JavaScript should load, or it should have a delayed execution. For example, I can say load my JS files after 5 seconds. So in this part, what's happening is that it asks me which ones I want to exclude. For example, if I'm using a tag manager or analytics, I shouldn't say that my tag manager should be delayed because it might affect the data that is recorded in my analytics or tag manager. It might not be real or accurate, but we usually need to test both of these simultaneously. We can put them together, but it's not logical to rely on complex loading responses. Take a key, metrics test to see how much your speed changes. Then run the test again to see how it turns out. Whichever one has better speed, use that one, because there isn't a fixed formula for each template or plugin. Next, guys, is our media section, which has a lazy loading feature. It means that I don't load all the images on a page at once. Instead, I wait for the user to reach that point, and then I load the image with a delay. This significantly reduces your loading volume. For example, if your site was loading in 7 seconds, with those images this way, it can change your loading speed by about 50 to 60%. That's why we usually apply it to images. Background images, iframes, and videos. This part, guys, is very important in the media section, and we need to do this. There's also something that usually happens. Now page speed might flag it or give it a warning saying, hey, the images that are not optimized or the videos are not optimized, or I add images that are not optimized based on its own criteria. This part, guys, is the media section, and it's very important and has a significant impact on our speed. The next part, guys, is preload or preloading. It says, I'll create a series of files for you before caching, meaning before loading, and I'll cache those files myself. So in addition to the caching that's happening, it also creates a series of files itself and places them. That's it, guys. Usually don't use it when your site is a store or a company or an educational store. If it's a company, put it on. Pirlo's preload. And now it has some links that you can define for it. Or for example, take it behind the scenes. The rest of us, the next part should be advanced, which now says, sir, I can do some tasks for you. For example, cache some pages for you and the rest of us. The database guys come and optimize the extra information that exists in your database. It says, sir, you have 21 revisions in the database that you can delete. You have automatic drafts, 2 posts in the trash, for example. If you have spam comments or trash comments, it brings them up. Or for example, it refers to transient data or cookies saying, sir, this much has been stored in your database and is attracting attention. It says, if you check these for me, I can delete them for you and optimize your database. Initially, it also tells you to definitely take a backup. It says, sir, before executing this part, take a backup of your site because I might make a mistake. For optimizing our database, we usually don't use Rocket because it might cause a lot of disruptions, and there's another plugin that works with it. But if you want to optimize, make sure to take a backup beforehand. We have a content delivery network, or CDN, which claims to have its own Rocket CDN that costs around $7 monthly. It also suggests that you can use Cloudflare. We will delve into the concept of CDN in detail to see what functions it performs for us. The next part, guys, is the section that performs certain tasks and imposes some limitations on your server to reduce your load. However, we usually don't do anything with this section. It has some add-ons, for example, like Varnish or WebP, which say, hey, I'll convert your images to WebP, or I'll activate Cloudflare on your site. The next part is image optimization, which says, hey, I do this with another tool that you can install and use for yourself. And tools like import and export, which do the same thing we did in full security, say to export some data and then import it again. But because each site and its optimization is different, we don't use this tool. It also has a training section that tells us how you can better use some tools and methods that are on the page speed of this site to optimize them. But the main sections we are working with are cache, optimization, and media. This part is very important for us. Now we have just become familiar and know what each one does. Later in the course, when we fully launch our site, we will optimize them, and at that point we will understand how to better optimize it or what tricks exist for it. Stay with us. And the next thing we need for optimization is the Lightspeed Cache plugin. But there's an issue, guys. You shouldn't use the Lightspeed Cache and Rocket plugins simultaneously, as it usually causes errors. You should either use Lightspeed, or Rocket. Also, there's something important about the Lightspeed plugin. You need to have its infrastructure in place. So what does it mean to have its infrastructure? You need to log into your cPanel, scroll down, and make sure the Lightspeed Web Cache Manager section is active for you. This means if your web server is Nginx or Apache, you won't have this option. When I go into Lightspeed Cache Management, it shows me the list of sites I have. Now I find it, or it's WP+, and I say, okay, I want to enable it. Guys, sometimes it gives you some errors saying, hey, I can't enable it. And the reason for the error is also mentioned right there. Right now, we have exactly these errors. It says, you have an advanced cache in your WP config, which is for Rocket, and I can't enable Lightspeed while this is present. So after we remove this, we go into WP content. And we delete the advanced cache and Rocket config because we had previously used Rocket. So if Rocket was previously on your site, you need to deactivate it. Now I will scan again to bring up the sites. Lightspeed is the only plugin that we install from the host, meaning we don't install it from the plugin section because it must have been pre-configured for it. I will come back again, enable it, and click on WP+ to activate it. Well, now it says that Lightspeed has been activated. Here, it also shows as enabled for me. I will go to the control panel after this. Lightspeed has been automatically activated for me. So guys, we don't install Lightspeed from the destination. We definitely say to install it from the host itself so that it has its features. When we go into Lightspeed, there are a series of options, for example, pre-configured settings. It says, I have set 4.9 for you as the preset mode. I have configured the engine, and based on these settings, we can define the preset, meaning you don't have to go back again. Configure it yourself. Voila. Usually, if we want to use this, we use the advanced settings and then proceed to check it. There are a few topics for the kids. One is a general topic that provides us with some general data, like automatic updates and other such matters. We don't deal with these settings of Lightspeed. We focus on two sections, one of which is still at the introductory level, which is the small settings become the first bracelet. The topic is its discovery. When I come into the cache, it asks me if I should activate the cache for your logged in users and whether to set a cache for them. If it's a store, it's better if it's not. It says I can set a cache for comments, REST API, and login page, usually turn it off. It says I can cache the favicon or the top logo for you and cache PHP resources so that some data you want to read with PHP doesn't need to be read and your site speed increases. Nali do, it's better, and now the quality of your request also improves because it prevents requests. It says I can also set a separate mobile cache for you, and we can tell everyone that we can cache for you on where, for example, on mobile, Android, etc. And now you tell us some data. For example, you can give a private link or make it mandatory. And usually, if our site is an e-commerce site, we don't cache the login and user sections. There are some other settings, guys, that we don't deal with and leave them on the default values. The next part is about optimizing the pages. What we are dealing with here again is the CSS minification settings, which reduce the spaces and compress the file. This process is called minifying, or compressing, and it combines our CSS for us. It creates a single UCS file and compresses it, which helps reduce the load time a bit. The same goes for inline code, where I can combine or group your CSS and put it into one file. I can also enable asynchronous loading of CSS for you and a few other settings, like optimizing fonts, which is very beneficial for Google. The important thing is that you can set the face mode. Or for example, I can also minify your inline CSS and optimize it for you. The next settings, guys, are the JS settings. This means I can minify the JS again, start combining them together, and merge them with combine, meaning I put them all into one file. I can also delay the loading of my JS here, or load it with a delay. By delaying, I mean that I let my site load first, and then load them one by one for you, or with a delay. When the site loads, it loads everything together for you. Start. For HTML, it's the same. It says I can minify your HTML. And because Lightspeed has more settings than Rocket, it does a lot more on the server side. But this doesn't necessarily mean that Lightspeed is better. It depends on the type of your website. Now, it defines a series of definitions and even defines DNS prefetching, placing it in your head to make things a bit better. It closes and removes your query strings. You can tell it to load your Google fonts asynchronously, or even remove them altogether. For example, when you install Elementor or use certain themes and your site is in Persian, we no longer need Google fonts. It says I can remove emojis for you, and I can also remove no script tags for you. It has media settings, which is the lazy load section that I can activate. Now it asks how to display it on mobile. It sets a background for it and other WordPress related items. It has an API with settings, meaning the same viewport that we have. It says I can define a viewport for images, set them to lazy load, for example, when it has a scroll with settings that if I don't want to lazy load images, I can do that. It handles it saying, I will handle the avatars for you and some other tasks. And usually we don't deal with the rest of its settings. The main settings are CSS, JS, HTML, and media. There's another part where it talks about image optimization, saying, I can optimize your images, meaning I can reduce the size of your images. It has settings where, for example, it defines a time interval, saying this should happen every 4 hours. It optimizes without affecting the original image by creating a backup of the optimized image, ensuring that when it optimizes, there is no loss in quality, meaning it doesn't degrade the quality. We can also define that it converts all our images to WebP, which further reduces our size. This, like Rocket, has database settings that we usually don't do it with this either. But another thing it does is reduce a number of requests. It says, for example, I can lower the responsive max number, reducing the number of requests I'm making for you. And it has a crawler section, which provides us with an overall data on the optimization status and a toolbox. What is this toolbox? It says I can optimize your caches, host the main page, handle 403 and 404 errors, or optimize all your caches. Usually we need, if we make a change to our site's cache, to either clear the cache from this section using the diamond icon at the top for Lightspeed logs, or we can come here and click on clear all to delete all our data. This also has an import-export feature that allows us to export our settings and use them on another site, which we usually don't need to do. because each site's settings should be done on a per-case basis. This means that when we optimize a site, we need to test it to see if the settings we've applied are effective or not. We are not falling in love with these settings right now, and to customize it, we need to bring up a site and optimize these on a case-by-case basis to ensure that no issues arise within the site itself and that our score doesn't drop. Because sometimes I might apply a set of settings that could have the opposite effect, potentially even lowering our ranking. That's why we need to perform this task for each site on a per-case basis.